We have a guest in the studio, John Allan Namu, investigative journalist and founder of
Africa Uncensored.
There you go.
Yes.
Karibu sana to Kenya's biggest conversation.
Asante.
Good to have you again here.
Thank you for having me back.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's always a pleasure.
Asante.
A lot's happening in the country, John. I've got to start with just asking you off the bat.
I don't know. I feel sad that we are back here. I feel like I was just saying when we were about to go on air, I feel like it's an incredibly important time and an incredibly strange time for this level of selfishness. I don't understand what it is about the signs of the times that our political class just doesn't seem to see. The wolf is at the gate, right?
In fact, there are several wolves.
Several wolves,
yes.
Right? And here we are bickering, and in fights that may be couched in language that seem to be in the public interest. But if we're really honest with ourselves, if we're really, really honest with ourselves, whose interests?
There's nothing about public here.
Mm-hmm. Whose interests are we fighting for? Whose interests are we demonstrating for? You might be going there in all honesty to demonstrate, and it is your right. And I agree with the fact that people need to go and picket because it's a tough time for everyone.
Yeah.
But surely, I mean, the way things are being couched right now, the language, the brinkmanship, that sort of thing, it's language for a completely different time, different set of circumstances. And I just don't think that our political class especially appreciates just how deep in the mud we are as a country, but also within a very tough global context, so.
Wouldn't you say that perhaps what we are now seeing is something we need to be cognizant of and we need to take full stock of? Because you then see your leaders in their true element.
That's true.
And then you place yourself in a position where you can determine through the action where you fall into the priority list. You, as a Kenyan, who is supposed to be represented by these people.
That's true. But then CT, I would ask, and then what? Right? So now I know that I am far down the pecking order in terms of their priorities. And then what? These are still the people who need to legislate. These are still the people who need to lead and get us out of the mess. They're still the leaders that we chose for better or worse. And then what?
It's a good. This is where we get in this one. John Allan Namu, you've asked a very important question.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
No, but I mean, it's a dilemma for all of us to resolve.
It is a dilemma, but it's a dilemma which has direction. You know why? The reason why many antisocial behaviors are curtailed is because communities and the society will not tolerate it.
That is true. That is fact.
We tolerate all this nonsense that our political leaders throw at us. We tolerate it. And in toleration, we may not see it, but we seem to be enhancing it.
Yeah, by
we are
accepting
enablers.
Yeah, by normalizing.
Yes, we are enablers. Okay, we may think we are not, but we are enablers. When you look at the clips that are doing the round, the things people are saying, you're wondering, what the XYZ is this?
Yeah.
And some of this free reign, some of them, the leaders themselves are there, and there's some
pouring gas on.
Yes, and you're thinking, what on earth do these people think they are doing?
Yeah.
Now, when you see that, and there's a crowd cheering, now you tell me, if that isn't enabling, what is it?
I don't know. I really don't have the answer.
Because you tell me, if a leader came up and said, or people allowed came up and said their own things, and the crowd told them, where?
Yeah, go away.
Shut up.
You would suddenly find all that nonsense toning down. Remember, there was a time when we were taking this hate speech matter seriously.
Yeah.
What brought in the term Kamata Kamata Friday? And individuals who would just speak willy-nilly, said some of the craziest things, got arrested.
That's true. I think for me, the best example of like active citizenship is immediately after Kibaki took power. Do you remember that feeling that this is my country, I must take charge of it? if there's a policeman who is bribing somewhere out there, it's my mandate to make sure that this person doesn't do that. I think, difficult times also create strong people. So that, I guess, is the upside to this. We must find that strength as a country to now actually tell these guys off and tell them this is not how we want to be led. We want a country in which our futures are secure, our children's future is secure.
Yeah. And we get to a point where we're not pleading with them.
Yeah.
No.
Everybody is pleading. Religious leaders are pleading with the leaders to please talk.
See the language, please. Yeah. My benevolent, it's also your country, Hey.
We are pleading with Allan, pleading with President Ruto to please dialogue.
No, come on.
We are pleading with them, to please dialogue.
It's our lives.
Exactly. And these people are maintained by our taxes.
Exactly.
And when they are disrupting our lives, we actually get more affected.
Yes.
All they get in terms of effect is your security has been withdrawn, 2 cops, but they'll come back 7 of them next week. But you still have cops, who are plain clothes. They're still there. It's just that the visible cop is gone, but the cop is not gone.
That's such a good point, Eric. I don't even know how good the point you say that you're making. Like, it's this performative angst that these guys have against each other. Nakusumbua wewe, okay, sawa, I've taken away your security. Then now you posture. But at the end of the day, they know each other, and we know that next week this guy is going to have their security back. This person is going to be okay. And the wheels go round and round, and then we're the ones who are left there holding all of this anger that they've put into, they've pumped into our society. What do we do with that? It's a really toxic relationship, if ever there was one.
Indeed. City, just remind us today's proverb. It's from Guinea.
Yes, Guinea.
And it's about a journey.
Yes, it is. To make preparations does not spoil a journey.
To make preparations does not spoil a journey.
No, it doesn't. Kujipanga na mapema, as you say in Kiswahili.
Mapema ndio best. What's your interpretation of it, John?
To make preparations does not spoil a journey.
No, trip. They actually say trip, but let's call it journey, because a trip is a journey.
Okay, so my interpretation is this. Look at me putting my phone here. My interpretation.
You're going live, right?
I am going live while you guys are live.
But that's perfectly all right.
Yes.
So every once in a while, turn it in my direction also.
Oh yes.
You read this.
Yeah. So to make plans does not spoil a journey. I think. Okay, I'm interpreting it in a very different way. And I'm interpreting it now from the proverb from today, like actual proverbs from the Bible. So there's a part in Proverbs 19, I think, that says, I'm paraphrasing, but man plans, but God, purposes. And so where we're saying that we're making preparations for a specific kind of journey, we don't know the trip that we're going on. So either way, we're not going to be able to spoil whatever journey.
So it doesn't make or spoil.
It doesn't make or spoil. There's still a journey ahead.
Yeah.
So that's how I look at it. Yeah.
Interesting perspective. Interesting perspective.
I might be wrong, but
who says?
When it comes to perspectives, you cannot possibly be wrong.
Yeah.
Because it's your perspective.
That's 1,000,000 points to you, John.
That's true. Thank you, Ndu.
I'm feeling generous today.
As we are talking about where we are, economically, yes, we are struggling and we are faced with big issues, right? We have seen all the signs, even the government itself, the CS for the National Treasury saying, brace for tough times. The Prime Cabinet Secretary saying, brace for tough times. Even the President saying, you know what, guys? I've got
things are thick.
Limited wiggle room, right? We are where we are because we started somewhere. And with African Census, you've started also investigating. This thing we are saying that, our debt is almost 10 trillion shillings in a 13 trillion shilling GDP. How did we get here? Do we actually have this debt and all? Tell us about it.
So it's one of the most... Okay, let me put it this way. Looking at our debt situation, you get a sick feeling in the pit of your stomach, because what you're finding, what we are finding as we just look back and trying to analyze where we've come from, is such deep disregard for this country. such deep disregard for this country, to the extent that you manipulate laws, you manipulate legislation, you take loans that you're not supposed to, you switch around the terms of loans, and in an incredibly, in a fashion as to say that you don't care about where this country is headed. That for me is a big thing about the series that we're doing. So let me give you an example, right? From a story that I'm thinking about whether I'm going to put it in there. But there's a certain prominent road, right? And it's not the expressway, because that one has its own drama.
Yeah.
But there's
another prominent one.
There's a certain prominent road that leads into the countryside that was financed by one of these multinational development banks, i.e. Kenya took a loan to be able to finance it end to end, right? So we've taken the loan. Then somewhere on our books, we go to the local market, borrow from the banks to pay for the road that was financed by the loan. So we've borrowed twice, basically.
Right.
And this is not 10 million or 20 million. This is hundreds of millions, if not billions of shillings.
John, sorry, I'm going to need you to say that again.
We go to a bank. Road project is designed. It's legitimate. We go to a bank, a multinational bank. We borrow from that bank, right? We get the money, or at least phases of the money. In our budget, we say we have taken from this bank, right? Then we go and borrow from the local market. So we issue a bond, like an infrastructure bond, right? And then borrow from the local market, from guys who buy bonds from banks, etc., right? To finance the same road. Road going worth into the billions, right? So we've borrowed twice. Yeah. So we've borrowed from the multinational bank. We've also borrowed from the local market. And that money that either comes from the local market or from the multinational bank cannot be seen where it's gone.
Wait. So is the road built?
Partially.
The road is partially built?
Partially. The road is not finished. I was on that road a month or two ago.
But the money was given in full.
The money was given.
That road, John Allan, was to be finished in January last year.
It was supposed to have been finished maybe like a year or two ago.
Yeah. I mean, as we continue talking, I can already see what
you can see the road that you're talking about.
Going down the road.
And you understand how important it is.
Folks,
yes.
Which part of the country is this road?
This road leads into...
It heads north.
Yes.
Okay.
It is part of the Great North Road.
Okay.
Yeah.
Even I can see the road.
You can see the road, right?
And I can see it incomplete.
Yes.
So, in the books, we have taken a loan from this development bank to build the road.
Yes.
Do the books also say that we have taken the infrastructure bond, or whatever name of the bond, to build the same road?
Yes.
Or do the books say we have taken this so that we can refinance the loan that we have, blah, blah, blah?
It's to build. What are we refinancing? What are we refinancing? It's to build the road. Like, you see, that's the thing, Eric.
And what's the difference in the amounts? How much?
No, it's the same amount.
Okay.
It's the same amount.
Okay.
So $1 billion from A and $1 billion from
Let me tell you,
local.
Eric, when I saw this, I looked at the summary of all of the work that I've done as a journalist, and I thought to myself that all of the billions or millions of people that we've exposed pale in comparison to the kind of mismanagement that we have endured over the past 10 years. You see what, remember that gentleman from Ghana who was here, I think, was it last week?
Yes.
Yep.
Exactly what he was saying happened in Ghana happened here. Exactly.
Only that we didn't build a cathedral.
We didn't build a cathedral, but we built private cathedrals for people, I'm sure, in their homes and swimming pools, and financed their offshore banking accounts. We did all of these things, right? But what for me, and maybe just to switch focus a little bit, seems strange, and here now we're talking at continental level. I was just thinking about it as on my way here. Doesn't it seem strange that we can have exactly the same situation as another country? Exactly.
Yeah.
right? Doesn't it seem strange? And it's not just 1 or 2 or 3 countries. Look at the number of countries that have taken Eurobonds since 2013. By the time we were joining, the time we were issuing our bond, 11 countries had already taken.
11 African countries.
11 African countries. How many of those countries are struggling with debt?
Oh, are you kidding? Nigeria has just the other day said that it cannot feed its people.
Can you imagine? A country of what? 200 million plus?
Yes.
Saying that it cannot feed. That is a recipe for disaster. But who benefits from this disaster? That's the bigger question we also have.
And how local are they?
Exactly.
Right. Because, I mean, you're talking about if it's all these, then definitely.
It can't just be one player.
It can't just be some local players.
Yeah.
They've got to be, a bigger cabal.
It's quite...
So,
anyway, go ahead.
A couple of steps back. So you have been doing this investigative journalism on debt and the debt situation, and now you're releasing it in bits. Indebted: Kenya's journey to a debt crisis. Right? Have you completed your investigations, or are you still doing them?
Pretty much.
And how long has it taken you to actually dig into this?
Well, it hasn't taken very long, fortunately. I think maybe maximum about 3.5 months at maximum. The good thing is that a lot of the content that we just needed to scratch the surface was already there. So part of the story that we're telling, it's part investigative but also part analytical. The reason that we've broken it down into bits is because we thought that it's important for Kenyans to be able to walk through the story slowly and understand why this loan is connected to this debt and this decision is connected to that consequence, and being able to just put it all together at once. It might be satisfying for someone to watch all the way through, but I think for us it's more public education about where we've come from. So in large part the investigation is complete. There are 1 or 2 things that I think we will add to the final part of the investigation, which will be out in 3 weeks. That has to do now with the nature of the Eurobond. But largely what we wanted to do was track all the way until William Ruto becomes president. But you see, now there's so many things that have happened in these 10 months and now I'm thinking, gosh, do we need a 5th part? But what the story is essentially is it's really, unfortunately, a story of really deep mismanagement of this economy paired with corruption and the use of debt both by locals and I'd say even though we don't have this in our story, I'd say also by certain foreign interests to ensure that Kenya is in the situation that it is today.
Because it is of benefit to some folks for Kenya to be in this position.
It is of benefit. Someone always benefits.
What's the benefit?
If you're indebted, you have much less agency to be able to talk about the kinds of deals that you get into. They become lopsided. If you're indebted, you have much less agency to talk about what kind of things that you're going to pawn off to ensure that your debts are paid. If you're indebted, there are certain strategic geopolitical interests that you must bow to in order to just remain part of the international community. But I think worse still, if you are indebted, you are not able to deliver for your people. You are constantly in a position where you have to lie to your members of the public, especially given the kind of sort of unsanitary politics that we have. I don't like the word unsanitary because no politics is ever sanitary, but I think the better word is sadistic politics that we have, right? Because there's some sadism in our politics. Now, it keeps us in that situation. It keeps us down. I think for me, the other story that people need to start to tell, and you guys have been doing a good job of it with the interviews that you've been doing, is what's the impact, right? So what's the impact to members of the public, people who, like for instance, a guy who came and talked here about pending bills, right? Businesses have closed down, lives have been devastated all across the country. But, and this is interestingly where I have some convergence of opinion with Jimmy Wanjigi. It is a moment like no other that we have been handed, because the kind of selfishness has the unintended consequence of really, like you were saying, CT, exposing what kind of leadership we have, exposing what kind of things we need to do with our country, and giving us the choice. Do we want to move forward as a country, as a nation that has this kind of leadership? Or do we want to really take, even if it's 10, 15 years, because it's going to take a long time to get out of this crisis, to fix what our country is supposed to be, so that, the future generations...
We can protect them.
Can be protected.
For us to do that, we must understand and accept the things that have happened. We must see them. We must accept them, and then we must understand how they happened.
Yeah.
And that's part of what you're doing.
Exactly.
With your recent expose.
Exactly.
I just want to hear whether what you're saying is that this has been a calculated scheme to actually lead us to where we are.
Okay.
Right?
All right.
John Allan Namu is an investigative journalist, award-winning founder of the Africa Uncensored. He has a new investigative and analytical series out, and you can find it on YouTube, Indebted: Kenya's Journey to a Debt Crisis. 2 episodes already out, and you're doing them in bits.
Doing them in bits. The third one goes out next week.
1 per week.
But 1 every 2 weeks.
1 every 2 weeks with a lot of water.
Yes. Nakunywa maji, you go, you get your popcorn, you come back.
Deep breaths.
Deep breath.
Deep breaths.
Because of what he's talking about. Where?
Yeah.
Indebted: Kenya's Journey to a Debt Crisis. Africa Uncensored has been investigating our debt situation in the country. And basically what John Allan Namu has found out is that Kenya ni nchi ya majambazi.
Majambazi.
Imeenda. Imeenda.
Inaenda hii. Usipofanya nini something. Inaenda hii.
So when you're looking at the debt, various debts, you're looking at our domestic borrowing, our international borrowing. Everything is anchored in law in this country.
Yes.
Have you found things that point towards illegalities that have been committed?
Illegalities, irregularities,
deliberate irregularity.
I'd say deliberate. So I'll give you an example. This one is from episode 2, right? So I can talk about it. So with the Eurobond as an example, right? So any money that we borrow, before it starts getting, paid out, at that time was supposed to hit the consolidated fund, right? So ikuje kwanza, it enters our country, it enters our bank account, then we decide, okay, so this is a project, this is how we're going to finance it, this is where it's supposed to go.
That's our account.
That's as per the Public Finance Management Law, right? Management Act, I should say. But what does Parliament do? It changes certain parts of the law to now say that people who, various people, there's various categories of people who've been listed there, who, as long as they're part of a bilateral agreement, a government-to-government agreement, then now you can be paid directly from whatever sources, right? You understand? Just being paid
what
out.
What other sources would we
being paid out without there being some sort of accountability within the from the consolidated fund. You understand?
Yeah.
So meaning that if you're a contractor that has been, hired under government-to-government agreement, then, there's certain ways in which you can be paid, which you couldn't access that money before. And therein lies the rub. So I want to go back. I'll look for the law here as we're talking, just so that I can list to you exactly what it is that, But one of the things that we found with the Eurobond was that first, okay, fine, it didn't hit the consolidated fund, right? Or rather, it didn't hit the consolidated fund until the syndicated loan, that Kibaki era syndicated loan, was paid off, right? So it comes less. Treasury says the funds are fungible, so that you can exchange what for what. It's not true, as per the PFM Act at that time, it wasn't true. But what it introduces is certain bad behavior. But I think people don't appreciate that if $2 billion hits a country's economy,
200 billion shillings,
yes,
at a rate of 100
at that time, yes. You'll feel it, you'll see it somewhere, right? But where did we see that impact, right? So mtu anasema tunajenga barabara, but where is the money that you understand?
Well, when Kenya was going into the international debt market and floating these bonds, what did Kenya say it wanted to do with the money? Was it to build roads? Was it to expand electricity connectivity?
It was supposed to fund infrastructure projects, last mile, all of that. But you see, that hiyo ni kusema. What does the actual budget say that it did? Right? What does it say that this money was taken from here and it funded
this road?
There was a time a PS from, I think, the roads ministry said that 21B has been spent on this road, on that road, and this road. But again, he was asked, show us the ledgers, show us where this...
Show us a breakdown.
They can't. You see, they can't show that, because how can you track money that has come and been commingled with other funds, and you haven't assigned a specific project for that money? That's the problem. So it may very well be, right, to give these guys a bone. It may very well be that this money was spent legitimately, but we can't see it. You understand? And that's the point of having these laws.
And this is the Auditor General who's saying this?
Yes, it's the Auditor General.
And for me, I think that's where the problem lies. Because we can talk for years about how, there's this money, we cannot find it. This person cannot explain. But for the conversation to end there is the issue.
Exactly.
Because when you come tomorrow, because this is a real life situation, what we're dealing with today. If money has come into the country that was supposed to be able to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it did not. Okay, it came in, but what it went to do, it would appear went to do something else.
Exactly.
Today you're met with a problem that those funds could easily well have sorted out. But then you come back to your people and say, well, you know what we're going to have to do? Because we don't have enough money, we're going to have to raise a tax here. We're going to have to double VAT here in order to get some extra funds. But the money in excess of what you actually need to make those things happen was in the country at some point.
At some point,
the questions are being asked, they're not being answered, no action is being taken, because which pot is going to call the kettle black?
So that's, hey, you guys, today I think the coffee you drank has something in it, because that's actually the crux of the issue here. Nobody is innocent. No one, right? Everybody has dirt or blood on their hands. So perhaps, and I'm just suggesting this, perhaps this is a moment to now come and say, we are all unclean sinners before the Lord, and we must now find a way to be able to put that behind us. See, there's an expression, every saint has a past, every sinner has a future. Right? So you understand. So is that the point that we have reached? But for us to really make a break with that and say, okay, fine, you guys stole. All of us, we stole, right? But we will not, we won't look at that too much. We won't steal again. Let's move forward. It needs honesty. It needs for all of us to be honest. Yeah, you must confess. And that's the thing that is completely missing in this conversation today.
And none of the political leadership who are all dirty will want us to have that conversation.
Yeah.
All right?
They won't. They'll just shadow box the way they're doing it now.
We'll talk about bei ya unga. They know why the bei ya unga is the way it is.
High.
They know why we do not have, we have to pay so much money back to Eurobond next year. That's that exact amount. How much? 2B next year. We need to pay it back. They know it didn't go anywhere into this country.
Yes.
But they will not talk about that. They just keep telling each other,
exactly. Cross this line.
But then it begs the question, why is it then that we as Kenyans, when we speak so eloquently about these matters, we speak with understanding, we communicate understanding? Why is it then that we are stuck in a position and we know we are not statues, we are stuck? I mean, why? Why don't we move forward with it?
Can I suggest a possible answer?
Yes.
I think that acquiescing, that saying nyinyi mmetufanyia vibaya lakini ni sawa tu, it's part of, we've been acculturated to do that. Now what we must do is to recognize that we also are in a cultural moment here where the values that we have now come to espouse are coming into conflict with the life that we are leading. So life is hard, but you can't change it because the values that you espouse just do not correspond with where you want to go. So you're saying life is hard, but yes, you'll be the same person who's looking for, a tender here, a side deal
like
there.
Opportunity. We call them opportunities.
Exactly. Yeah. Tunajaribu
So what you're saying is, what we then witness or see among ourselves is a coping mechanism.
Yes. So we've coped with our silence, we've coped with our acquiescing, but what we need to recognize is that it's not going to help us much longer.
But then don't you then see it that if we take this view, and it sounds to me like a very logical view, then in essence we are actually not protecting the politicians, we're protecting ourselves. Because if we've been part and parcel of this rot at our own level, at our various levels, at various times, then the conflict that we must have with these matters prevents us from actually taking a stand. Because essentially we'll be taking a stand against ourselves.
Yes, because it is taking time to look into the mirror and saying, what part did I play in this? Right? What part of my history is not clean? What skeleton do I have in my closet? What thing have I allowed to happen that essentially has set into process a chain of events that have led us here? Now, it's not me trying to moralize, because all of us are guilty. I think Wandi Anjoya was making this point. The system is rotten, but we cannot moralize. You understand?
Yeah.
We cannot stand and say, Winimbai, because all of us at some point in time have played a part in this.
Yeah.
So the big conversation that we must have as a country is that, okay, sawa, how do we then now create a new culture? And cultures are born from the margins of society.
But we must do so, John.
We must. And
we must do so by first of all acknowledging the degree of culpability.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
I mean, there are those that actually participated in scheming to steal, and they stole. All right? Our acquiescence is our sin.
Yes.
Our cheering and clapping for them because of the smoke screen that they had given, that's our sin.
That's our sin.
But we did not say, let's all go to the European market and float a fake bond. We did not say, let us take that money and steal it. We did not say, let's amend this law so that then we can pay ourselves out there. We did not say, there's somebody who did, and we must pinpoint that person and hang them at the cross.
Did we, as it said in the law, did we aid and abet?
No, not directly.
Not directly.
Actually,
not directly.
Not directly. You see, if as individuals we all bear our own cross, so to speak, since our analogy today seems to be biblical, then we acknowledge, I bribed the policeman.
Yeah.
I made sure I bribed the headmaster. That's mine. Now, it doesn't mean I then eliminate myself from the people who can point and say, actually that's mine, but yours is this. Because the crimes we speak of, our laws even distinguish them. They are what we call petty crimes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what I think needs to happen in our politics right now, it's that, in the art of war, a golden bridge, right? For your enemy to cross. So that nobody feels like they've lost, right? Each of us now go back with our pride intact. But then what needs to happen next is, okay, sawa. Now we say where the bodies are buried. And everybody puts their hands up.
You're clearly a God-fearing man.
Yeah.
Yes.
Why?
No. I am a lot more vindictive than you.
No.
Even I am not accepting this.
I'm saying,
There's the Gachacha court and there's the Arusha court.
That's what I'm saying.
Gachacha is for us now.
No.
We voted for these guys.
What I'm saying is,
let us take some buggers to Arusha and say, you guys, you financed the butchering of our people.
That's true.
Let us take Kabuga wherever he is now.
For this current situation that we're in right now, watu waseme, okay, sawa, tumepimana nguvu, none is stronger than the other. Go back to your barracks. Now then, we say, okay, now let us account for where these bodies are buried. And everybody on every side must put their hand up and accept the consequences of what it is that they have done. If you stole money, if you stole billions, if you financed violence, you understand? If you engineered the stealing of an election, then you must pay. And it doesn't matter who it is you are in society.
Yeah.
Whether you're the former president, the current president, the former prime minister, anybody of that level, you must pay.
Yeah.
Because that's the only way that I guess Kenyans will be given license to then now breathe afresh.
John,
Yeah.
there's a president in East Africa called Paul Kagame.
Yes.
Every time he's referred to, people talk about authoritarian rule, dictatorship. That president clearly demonstrate what a president who has his people's interests at heart does. Okay? You see the rule of law, it actually works. The human element that sometimes doesn't bring about perfection, it always exists, but you see it. You may say they are false. Again, you'd say, where human beings are, they must be false. Otherwise, they can't possibly be human beings.
Yeah.
But you see. It's not something that you talk about, and it isn't part of a riddle. It is as clear as daylight.
I was there. I was a good example. I was there in February, and I was doing a training there. And me, for the first time in Africa, I saw two people who were stopped by a cop because they crossed the road in the wrong place.
Come on.
Pedestrians. Me, I looked
There's
at
the
that
wrong
cop.
place.
I looked at those guys. They were remorseful. The cop gave them a tongue lashing. They went on their way. But that level of respect I had never seen anywhere else. Now, I have my own views about, governance in Rwanda, but you're right. There is a demonstration that things work, and they work for the common good. What works for the common good here in our country?
There is no such thing as a common good, because the existence of it are remnants that were cast in history. When you look at the coping mechanisms that we have adopted towards people who have committed crimes against humanity, the humanity here is their own citizens.
Yeah.
And we seem to usher them along. We are seriously damaged property, because that is not something that any right-thinking person should tolerate.
But I have to ask, because I'm conflicted, for everything that brings about such a situation, there's a precipice that people then cross. Something must have happened in order for somebody to then exist in a different kind of space, right? If we're using the example of Rwanda and saying, look at how what happened? Something broke the camel's back. And I keep saying that if there's going to be some kind of accountability by the people that is demanded of those who lead and those who govern, there's a point that must be reached whereby people are not taking any more prisoners. And I don't think Kenya is there yet. I don't think that, and it sounds terrible, but I don't think you've gotten to that point whereby you're saying, look, man, this is it.
Yeah.
There's no basement.
We are at the bottom.
Until it gets there where people have said, you know what, this kind of nonsense cannot happen anymore.
You don't see it happening.
No.
I think we're heading there. If you listen to what John Allan Namu is saying, if you listen to what a friend from Ghana, the Honorable Mate, was saying, if you listen to what Jimmy Wenjege have been saying and others, we are heading there.
Getting there.
Now, the important thing
It'll
is
eventually.
once we hit that rock bottom, to acknowledge and to identify what brought us there. So that then we are able to pick ourselves out of it. And I think that's what's happening.
Yeah.
So it's important that we keep having this conversation, because
Absolutely.
for sure we are heading into
heading there.
We're heading into that point. So when we get there, all of us will know, okay, we are at the rock bottom.
Yeah.
This is what happened. We got into this vessel, the vessel, whatever it did, and we are at the bottom of the ocean.
I mean, looking at stories that you've written, the stories that you've produced over time, talking about the different ills that have rocked society here, there, over and over again. This is information that people have consumed.
Yeah.
It's deposited.
Yeah.
It's deposited. It's deposited. This stuff that we are talking about is look, it's espionage. I mean, look, whatever you want to call it, it's big time.
It is. It's huge.
It is in the public arena. People are now consuming it and saying, my goodness, this is actually where we are.
Yeah.
What you do with that information then is equally as important. But the question is, people who are consuming it, people who are listening to you, people who are watching this, people who are listening to the control of budget say the shocking things that she says, the Auditor General say the shocking thing that she says, the revelations that Jimmy Wajigi is making, the things that you're saying. What then do you do with that information as you take it? What do you do with it?
You must be. Let me give another expression. I'm full of expressions today. There's one that I'll use from a Bob Marley song, right? So, in the presence of water, the fool is thirsty, right? Meaning that we have all of the information that we need to make the decision that we're supposed to make. We need to now be the person who says, okay, sawa, ndio hii maji yote, either I drink or I perish. And globally, we are reaching that tipping point. Everywhere across the world that I look, there is some sort of a conversation that has vignettes of what we're talking about today. And you may call it, you may call it fatalism, you may call it God's hand in moving things. But certainly, this global cost of living crisis, the war, climate change, and then now the local politics of every country are really finally lifting the veil on what kind of leadership that everybody has been exposed to and what it is that we want. I mean, if we're having even discussions about the international financing infrastructure being best fit for people of a certain skin color who come from a certain part of the hemisphere, live above a certain hemisphere, and those conversations are not just like sort of like cult conversations that are being had or conspiratorial. They're actually being had on the main stage. Then you can tell that people across the world are waking up, and even here. And this is a beauty. My colleague Elijah Kanye and I were just thinking about this situation, and one thing he said was very astute. The best thing that Kibaki did for this country was make education free, because at some level people understand and can question what is happening. So the potential to do what it is you're suggesting exists here in this country. It exists everywhere in this country, not just in Nairobi. You're hearing the kind of quality of questions that people on the street are asking of their leaders in Malindi, in Tana River. You're hearing the same kinds of questions in Mandera, in Moyale. That's an important moment, because then maybe we can recognize that the nation state that we had been taught to believe in, that is Kenya, did not exist. That we were micronations just forced together by laws and colonialism. But that culturally and economically and socially, we now have a new bond. We are now prisoners of the same kinds of, of the same jailer. And in there is some sort of camaraderie that we can build with one another and say, okay, sawa, this is now the conversation that we need to have. This is where we need to go. We shouldn't let it be captured and led by the very people who've been our jailers for a long time. It should come from us, and it's coming from us.
Very well put. Very well put. There's nothing else to add. John Allan Namu and Africa Uncensored have worked on a series of stories revolving around our debt crisis as a country, and now it's coming out. 2 episodes already up on YouTube. Indebted, Kenya's Journey to a Debt Crisis. Just go and search for that on YouTube, and you watch it. They're too short, but 13 minutes.
I've been told that.
No sooner you started enjoying, and then it's over.
There are things that you enjoy in sips and
sips.
in pole pole.
And then you have to wait for 2 weeks now to watch but there are 2 episodes already, so at least 26 minutes
There's
of
30 minutes of content to digest.
To digest first, and then you'll give us now the tough ones.
And they're coming. This next one, prepare yourselves.
Asante sana.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.